Ever since Respa first lit the torch of civilization, the barbarian lived only to snuff it out. For over a millennia, Respa held the torch of civilization, growing to control much of Euronya and the land surrounding the Metaxagus Sea. Respa stood as a force of stability and control against the tribal and chaotic world. Respa's mere existence was a resistance against entropy, a war against fate. But in the end, fate always wins. Respa's collapse, at least in the West, would act as a birth of a new age in Euronya, one filled with disparate kingdoms as opposed to the once unified empire. Respa would succumb to foreigners from realms either ignored, allowed settlement within, or those outrightly invading it. It is with these three categories that we can identify each of the succeeding polities. The ignored. In her time, Respa had conquered many tribes throughout the three continents, but not all were lucky enough to have been considered worthwhile candidates for civilization. Most of these peoples resided in locked-away mountain valleys, worthless wetlands, or scalding sands, but they were sure to make their presence known during the collapse. The Dakans dwelt in the marshlands of the Dagon Mountains, their history mainly consisting of being overlooked by Respa, and then whenever Respa was looking particularly unstable, the Dakans were quick to rush into the nearby province of Venya, only to be quickly defeated and chased back to their swamps once order was restored. The Dakans would once again invade Venya at the collapse, though, this time, there were no legions to send them back to their swamps. The Folak lived inside the small pockets between the Felis Mountains. The Folak never really caused the Respans any troubles, and the Respans treated them likewise, never seeing a real point in launching a campaign into a remote people living in a barren region, when they already controlled the rest of the peninsula, which was filled with silver. During the collapse, the Folak expanded somewhat, mostly further outside of the mountains, but the invading Stomach tribes were quick to halt any further advancement. Lastly, we have the Barbarians. The Barbarians were inhabitants of the northwest of Akros. While not exactly unified in one big tribe, there was a decent amount of camaraderie between the Barbarian tribes. The relation with Respa were quite cordial as well. The Akra tribe had even been rolled into a client state by Respa, and had even stayed as such into the collapse. As with the others, this was due to Respa's lack of will to conquer and assimilate the rugged mountains the Akra called home, and the scalding sands of its brothers. When Respan power fizzled out in the region, Akra and the other Barbarian tribes were quick to assume control of the region, founding the first Barbarian kingdom. Settlements. In the late 4th century, the Stomach tribe saw an unprecedented rise in population. This rise caused displacement and conflict between the tribes, along with an overall expansion of Stomach territories. Some of these tribes even decided they could go toe-to-toe with Respa and settle within her bountiful lands. The first of these tribes to successfully be granted settlement were the Karmani. The Karmani first entered Respa in the province of Venya, where they were quick to overwhelm the local legions. They were only driven out once Western Emperor Illyrian drew on legions from the surrounding provinces of Gestia and Albra Superior and Inferior. The Karmani then went on to travel to the other side of the Albra Mountains, where they fought until the death of Emperor Illyrian, wherein his son, upon taking the title of emperor, was quick to grant the Karmani settlement rights in the eastern Albra Mountains. The Psalms were a northern Stomach tribe renowned for their military capabilities. When they began their migration from the North Thitan Sea, they set out on a path of destruction, tearing right through the other Stomach territories as well as nearby Skavic tribes as they made their way south. They were even successful against the Keshik, who had been a major thorn in Respa's side since they showed up. By the time the Psalms actually had arrived on the borders of the eastern Respa, the Respan army wasn't all too willing to fight a new force who had smashed through countless tribes, along with one of Respa's greatest adversaries. For this, the Eastern Emperor was quick to make a deal with the Psalms, allowing them settlement in the border region with the Keshik horde in exchange for their loyalty and protection. Similar deals were then made in the west due to further Stomach pressure and an overall lack of Respan ability to withstand these barbarian invaders. The region of Zakaria was split roughly in thirds. The Otrith were granted the west, the Valans were granted the south, and the Skiri were granted the north, while Respa still retained minor territories in the east. Invasions. All of these treaties and travesties would mean nothing, however, once the Keshik horde advanced into Respa. The Keshik horde sought to migrate all the way into Gestia. The combined forces of the Respans and loyal Stomach tribes met in battle with the Keshik horde. During the battle, the Otrith split in twain, with some deserting to the Keshik forces against Respa. The battle would last for over 3 days, and despite the betrayal, Respa and her allies pushed back the horde. The Keshik retreated northward into the steppe north of Venya, pushing out the native Darzik peoples. The battle was a huge loss for the Respans, however, and spelt the end of any ability on the Respans' half to defend themselves. The chief of the Psalms tribe died in the battle, and the tribe split between his 2 sons, creating the Visasams and the Ostrasams. The Visasams went down to Zakaria to take revenge at the Otrith, and conquered their land from them without much difficulty. The Valans in southern Zakaria smelt blood in the water, and went to work constructing a navy to flee as soon as possible before the Visasams could fight them as well. They would end up settling their Valan kingdom in North Akros, where they invaded many of the islands neighboring Behia as well. The Ostrasams went east into the heartland of Respa, Behia. In between the battle against the Keshik and now, the Karmani tribe had sacked Respa, and its chieftain had declared himself the new emperor of Respa. This Karmani pretender empire would only last less than a year before the Ostrasams were able to take Behia, and most importantly, Respa, for themselves, along with additional eastern, formerly Karmani, territories. The Skiri retained their third of Zakaria due to the fact that the Visasams had to focus north on 2 other tribes that had slipped through during all of this chaos, the Korbe and the Onks. The Korbe and Onks fought together against the Visasams and defeated them in battle, guaranteeing their large expanse of Gestia for themselves. The Korbe settled in the southern region, and the Onks settled in the more prosperous north. Remnants. But amidst all this chaos and destruction, the hope, the fire of Respa, could not be fully destroyed. These are the provinces of western Respa that were left unconquered during the collapse. Most prominently is the eastern portion of the empire, which would go on to reclaim some of the lands lost in the collapse. In the far west, however, there were 3 provinces that were left standing, to differing degrees. Chorus, off the west coast of Zakaria, was unscathed entirely. The governor of Chorus had even made a pact with the Skiri kingdom to ensure peace, since the Skiri were fearful of the powerful Visasams' kingdom. The province of Isia was sheltered from the mainland quite well, though it had faced an onslaught from the Tasbrian tribes on the island. These attacks did reduce Isia's size, but overall, Isia was able to retain itself. The final remnant is the province of Lyrica, which lies just north of Gestia. The invading Onks tribe made their pass at conquering Lyrica. It wasn't as easy for them as was invading Gestia, but the Onks did manage to. The legion stationed there didn't completely give up the fight, though, and they retreated north into the Darzik tribes, who treated them fairly. These legions would then go on to found the fortress of Kodros. Hey, Eliaker here. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. Much appreciated. Much love. This is Kyltin, my world building project. I suppose I could say faux history is what I've been calling in my mind. The idea here is mainly just that I have this map, right, and I'm kind of like vaguely following along with world history, but we can get into some like crazy territory as time goes on. Think about this as sort of a from the get-go a what if scenario, I suppose, and we can just take it wherever we want and just keep building, just like real history, except I mean this is completely fake, hence faux history. But yeah, so that's kind of the basic concept here. If you have any ideas of what you'd like to see, or what like twists on a historical event you would like to see, comment below. Tell me what's what the fans would love to see. But yeah, thank you for watching. Super cool.